Greetings. Father Mark signing on, continuing the course on medieval church history. Last time was the first session in a unit on Islam. We read an excerpt from the first biography of Muhammad, written by a guy whose name was also Muhammad, Muhammad bin Ishaq, lived in the 8th century. And from that quote, there were 4 points that are essential to understand. So we covered the first one last time, that the name of Muhammad's father indicates that he was ethnically Arab, and we did that background. So now the second point of importance is that Muhammad's father's name identifies a specific lineage that we can trace, as the Arabs traced it. The second son of Ishmael was named Kedar, Kedar. This is in the book of Genesis, chapter 25, verse 13. From him, from Kedar, descended a person named Kenana. He established his own tribe. From Kenana descended a tribe called the Quraysh. And that was the tribe Muhammad was born into. So I've seen it spelled different ways. Because of course, they use a different alphabet, and they don't render vowels, so it's all based on the breathings. So there are different ways to render it. So just one for the seminarians, just so you have something. Quraysh. With a caveat that there are other ways to spell it, but that's one. It's sort of phonetic, the Quraysh tribe. Some Muslims believe that Muhammad fulfilled the prophecy in the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, beginning at verse 11, which mentions Kedar. Quote, "Let the steppe and its cities cry out, the villages where Kedar dwells. Let the inhabitants of Sela exult," and that's present-day Jordan, "and shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory to the Lord and utter his praise in the coastlands. The Lord goes forth like a hero, like a warrior. He stirs up his ardor. He shouts his battle cry. Against his enemies he shows his might." So those Muslims who do subscribe to this as being related to Kedar, Muhammad's ancestor, and that Muhammad fulfills it, this is one way they account for the violence that occurred during the expansion of Islam. Anyway, the Quraysh tribe was powerful, controlling Mecca, the city of Mecca. That's 43 miles inland from the Red Sea. So here's Saudi Arabia, the Red Sea, and here's Mecca, right there. Its practical importance was that it contained a perennial water source, a well, accessing subterranean alluvium. Now, lest one underestimate the importance of this feature, must be remembered that Arabia is the largest peninsula in the world without a single river. Mecca was an essential stop, therefore, on the caravan route traveling up the Red Sea to Jordan and Syria and back. It also maintained a structure that's also in the quote, called the Kaaba. That's Kaaba. It contained the idols of the many tribes who passed through on the caravan route, so they could stop. They stopped to get water. They could also stop and visit their whatever deity that they prayed to. In terms of religion, and further explaining the significance of Muhammad's descent from Abraham through Ishmael, as fundamental to his later success. Muslims believe that the water source in Mecca, the town of Mecca, and the shrine, the Kaaba in Mecca, all had associations with Abraham. So in the Quran, Surah 2, chapter 2, verse 127, contain the Islamic belief that Abraham and Ishmael established Mecca itself. Muslims correlate the water source, which is called the Well of Zamzam. It's only 66 feet away from the Kaaba. Some Muslims correlate the existence of that well with the book of Genesis, chapter 16, verses 8 through 14. When Hagar, Ishmael's mother, was still pregnant with him, she was on the run, because Sarah, anyway, she was on the run and dying of thirst in the desert, and an angel appeared to her and revealed that well. So some Muslims believe that the Well of Zamzam in Mecca is that well. And Muslims believe that the shrine, the Kaaba, was built by Abraham. And that brings us to the third point of significance in that quote from Ben Ishaq's biography of Muhammad, the mention of his mother taking him to the Kaaba, and the mention of his grandfather mentioning Allah and speaking of the one, the one God, and mentioning Allah. Muslims believe that the Kaaba was actually built by Abraham. The Kaaba, the Quran, chapter 3, verse 96. Indeed, the first house of worship established for mankind was that at Makkah, full of blessing and guidance for all kinds of beings. Makkah is an ancient name for Mecca. The Quran, chapter 2, verse 127. And remember, when Abraham was raising the foundations of the house, and with him Ishmael, saying, O Lord, accept this from us. Indeed, you are the hearing and the knowing. Some Muslims also regard in the Bible, the Psalm 84, verses 6 and 7, as a reference to this place and the oasis. Quote, Blessed the man who finds refuge in you. In their hearts are pilgrim roads. As they pass through the Baqa Valley, they find spring water to drink. Now, I say some Muslims, there's some contention with this because there are those who assert that the ancient name for Mecca was Baqa, and that subsequently the name was changed. But there remains in Lebanon, present-day Lebanon, ancient Phoenicia, there remains a valley, the Baqa Valley, so there's some who would say that the Psalm 84 refers to that, because that's closer to the Holy Land than Mecca. But whichever. The word Kaaba means a cube. It refers to the building. It's a freestanding structure. It's a rectangle. It's a cube. A rectangular stone edifice, 40 feet long, 35 feet wide, 50 feet high. Today, it stands in the center of an immense porticoed enclosure, the Masjid al-Haram. In the southeast corner of the Kaaba, 5 feet up from the ground, is a black, oval-shaped stone, 7 inches in diameter. Likely a meteorite retrieved in antiquity and placed in the wall of the shrine. This stone was considered sacred for centuries before Muhammad. in the 3rd century AD, an 11th generation ancestor of Muhammad, named Fihir bin Malik, defended Mecca from a Yemeni invasion attempting to seize and transfer the Kaaba to Yemen. His victory, Muhammad's ancestor's victory, Fihir bin Malik, his victory around the year 240 AD, kept the Kaaba in Mecca and cemented control of his tribe over Mecca. And this is the Quraysh tribe. Sorry, my porcine digits are having difficulty with the page. In the 5th century AD, 2 centuries before Muhammad's birth, his tribe negotiated an agreement with surrounding tribes that an area of 20 miles around Mecca would be considered combat-free, a demilitarized zone, allowing everyone access to the oasis of Zamzam, as well as access to the Kaaba, to the idols in the Kaaba. Functionally, at the time of Muhammad's birth, the Kaaba was a shrine containing 360 idols, along with some paintings representing the deities of the many tribes and families who traveled through the region. It was said to include a pair of ram's horns, believed to be those of the ram Abraham sacrificed instead of Isaac, in the book of Genesis, chapter 22, verse 13. This also comes from this comes from the Arab Muslim genealogist whom we've already met, but a different book that he wrote. So Hisham bin al-Kalbi, we met him earlier as a genealogist. So he wrote another book titled The Book of Idols, describing historically the gods and the rites of pre-Islamic Arab religions. Conforming to his genealogical conclusions that Abraham and Ishmael built Mecca and the Kaaba to honor the one God, the one true God, Al-Kalbi denounced Ishmael's descendants for relapsing into idolatry. This necessitated, in Al-Kalbi's view, Abraham's true heir, Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, to restore his descendants' fidelity to monotheism, to belief in the one true God. While Al-Kalbi detested paganism and idolatry, his work inadvertently preserved some of the historical details of the practices at the time of Muhammad's birth. He tells us that the tribes around Mecca principally revered 3 deities. There were sister deities. Manat was the goddess of fate. Al-Lat, that's A-L-L-A-T, Al-Lat, was the goddess of war. And Al-Yusa was the goddess of protection and love. They were important enough to be repudiated by name in the Quran. Chapter 52, verses 19 through 22. Have you considered Al-Lat and Al-Yusa, and Manat, the third one, the other? Are you too to have the males, and he the females? What a bizarre distribution. These are nothing but names which you have devised, you and your ancestors, for which God sent down no authority. It is also said that the Kaaba contained a painting of the baby Isa sitting on the lap of his mother Maryam. This is the Arab rendering of the names Jesus and Mary. This would be to accommodate Christian Arabs, about whom we've already mentioned some, and we'll say some more shortly. Going to the other source we used, according to Ben Ishaq's biography of Muhammad, when the Kaaba was once destroyed by fire, Muhammad participated in the rebuilding, specifically resetting the stone himself in the year 605, before he began his public activity. Later, Muhammad integrated the Kaaba into Islam, after removing the idols, by making it the center of the Hajj. That's a pilgrimage that Muslims are to make once in their lifetime. Other shrines in Arabia, Timanat, Al-Lat, and Al-Yusuf, were destroyed by Muhammad's followers between 630 and 632 AD. The fourth detail that we can derive from the quote we read last time from Ben Ishaq's biography is the reference to Allah that reveals that Muhammad's family included members who were Hanif, Hanif. By the time Muhammad was born, despite the relapse of so many into idolatry, there remained some Arabs who retained the monotheism of Abraham, and they declined to worship other gods. So the word Hanif means to decline. So they declined to worship other gods. Their concept of monotheism was rooted only in oral traditions of Abraham's covenant with God. The biography by Ben Ishaq tells us that Hanif, within Muhammad's own family, had explored Judaism and Christianity in their quest to return to their heritage. So here's an excerpt. Khadijah, that's Muhammad's first wife, Khadijah told her cousin, that's her father's brother. Khadijah told her father's brother, Waraka, who was a Christian, well versed in sacred and profane literature, what Maisara had related. Waraka had been one of the men of the Quraysh known as the Four Inquirers, who had gone in search of the true religion of Abraham. End quote. This Waraka became a Nestorian Christian priest. So recall that Nestorianism was a version of dualism, one of the many. This one denied the divinity of Christ. Nestorius, their slogan was that Mary was the mother of the human Jesus, but not the divine Christ. This was, of course, heretical and stupid, and it was condemned by the Council of Chalcedon in the year 451. Further, remember another set of authoritative texts from the Islamic perspective are the Hadith. Those are discourses. So one of them elaborates about this Waraka and the importance of his role at the beginning of Islam. This Hadith is derived from Aisha. She was Muhammad's third wife. Explaining that the Christian relative Waraka was present from the beginning. The event she's describing is the event that Muslims believe was Muhammad's first revelation through a supernatural entity. Occurred in a cave called Hira, Hira, located on a mountain near Mecca. On Friday, the 17th day of Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, That's been calculated to correspond on our calendars to August 6th, 610 AD, when Muhammad was age 40. The narrative of Aisha states that Jibreel, that's their rendering of Gabriel, angel Gabriel, commanded Muhammad to recite the first line of chapter 96 in the Quran, with further details recorded in chapter 53. She explained that Muhammad's first wife, Khadijah, brought Muhammad to her father's brother, the Nestorian Christian Waraka. Waraka told Muhammad that the supernatural entity he encountered was Jibreel, was Gabriel. So here it is in Aisha's words. These are the words of Muhammad's third wife. Quote, "The commencement of the divine inspiration to Allah's apostle was in the form of good dreams, which came true, like bright daylight. And then the love of seclusion was bestowed upon him. He used to go in seclusion to the cave of Hira, where he used to worship Allah alone, continuously, for many days, before his desire to see his family. He used to take with him the journey food for this day, and then come back to his wife Khadijah to take his food likewise again, till suddenly the truth descended upon him while he was in the cave of Hira. The angel came to him and asked him to read. The prophet replied, 'I do not know how to read.' The prophet added, 'The angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it any more. He then released me and again asked me to read, and I replied, 'I do not know how to read.' Thereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time, till I could not bear it any more. He then released me and asked me to read, but again I replied, 'I do not know how to read.' Thereupon he caught me for the third time and pressed me, and then released me and said, 'Read in the name of your Lord, who has created all that exists, has created man from a clot of blood. Read, and your Lord is the most generous.' Then Allah's apostle returned with the inspiration, and with his heart beating severely. Then he went to Khadijah and said, 'Cover me, cover me.' They covered him till his fear was over, and after that he told her everything that had happened, and said, 'I fear that something may happen to me.' Khadijah replied, 'Never, by Allah. Allah will never disgrace you.' Khadijah then accompanied him to her cousin, Waraka. Waraka, who, during the ignorance, that's in the Hadith they refer to the pre-Islamic period as the ignorance, who during the ignorance became a Christian and used to write the writing with Hebrew letters. He would write from the gospel in Hebrew as much as Allah wished him to write. Waraka was an old man and had lost his eyesight. Khadijah said to him, 'Listen to the story of your nephew, O my cousin.' Waraka asked, 'O my nephew, what have you seen?' Allah's apostle described what he had seen. Waraka said, 'This is the same one who keeps the secrets, the angel Jibreel, whom Allah had sent to Moses.'" End quote. The significance of this being that when Muhammad went public with his call to return to Abraham's monotheism, describing Jesus as the son of Mary, not the son of God, the son of Mary, and declared that God had no children, this was consistent both with Judaism as well as with the Christianity of which he was aware, Nestorian Christianity, which denied the divinity of Christ. And he knew of that through Waraka. Later in the Quran, in Surah 2, Jibreel is mentioned by name. Verse 97, say, "Whoever is hostile to Jibreel, it is he who revealed it to your heart by Allah's leave, confirming what preceded it, and guidance and good news for the believers. Whoever is hostile to Allah and his angels and his messengers and Jibreel and Michael, Allah is hostile to the faithless. Further down in Surah 2, we find Muhammad's view of the connection between Judaism and Islam. So this is chapter 2, beginning at verse 99. Quote, "We have revealed to you clear signs, and none rejects them except the sinners. Is it not that whenever they make a covenant, some of them toss it aside? In fact, most of them do not believe. And when there came to them a messenger from Allah, confirming what they had, a faction of those who were given the book threw the book of Allah behind their backs, as if they do not know. And they followed what the devils taught during the reign of Solomon. It was not Solomon who disbelieved, but it was the devils who disbelieved. They taught the people witchcraft and what was revealed in Babylon to the two angels, Harut and Marut. They did not teach anybody until they had said, 'We are a test, so do not lose faith.' But they learned from them the means to cause separation between man and his wife. But they cannot harm anyone except with Allah's permission. And they learned what would harm them and not benefit them. Yet they knew that whoever deals in it will have no share in the hereafter. Miserable is what they sold their souls for, if only they knew." End quote. Adhering to our approach of taking the people and the time on their own terms, we turn to another medieval Islamic scholar, this one in the 9th century, named Muhammad bin Jarir al-Tabari. So if you want to look him up, look up Tabari, Tabari. He offered an interpretation of this passage that was widely accepted among Muslims in the medieval period. So the two beings mentioned, Harut and Marut, as being angels in Babylon, Al-Tabari regarded them as Zoroastrian angels. Zoroastrianism, we've encountered, it was a pre-Christian, pre-Islamic religion of fire worshipping. Therefore, for Muslims, these angels of Zoroastrianism were demons masquerading for the purpose of promoting paganism. Now, the reference to Solomon and the devils and the false gods, that corresponds to the Bible, First Book of Kings, chapter 11, beginning at verse 1. Quote, "King Solomon loved many foreign women, besides the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, Hittites, from nations of which the Lord had said to the Israelites, 'You shall not join with them, and they shall not join with you, lest they turn your hearts to their gods.' But Solomon held them close in love. He had as wives 700 princesses and 300 concubines, and they turned his heart. When Solomon was old, his wives had turned his heart to follow other gods, and his heart was not entirely with the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. Solomon followed Astarte, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he did not follow the Lord unreservedly, as David his father had done." End quote. Al-Tabari regarded this episode, and the precedent is set, as opening a rift among the descendants of Abraham through Isaac, that's the Jews. A rift between them and the descendants of Abraham through Ishmael, the Arabs. Now, back to the Quran, chapter 2, for the Muslims' perspective on Jews and Christians as fellow people of the book. So this is chapter 2, beginning at verse 103. Had they believed and been righteous, the reward from Allah would have been better, if they only knew. It is never the wish of the disbelievers from among the people of the book, nor of the polytheist, that any good should be sent down to you from your Lord. But Allah chooses for his mercy whomever he wills. Allah is possessor of sublime grace. We never nullify a verse, nor cause it to be forgotten, unless we bring one better than it, or similar to it. Do you not know that Allah is capable of all things? Or do you want to question your messenger, as Moses was questioned before? Whoever exchanges faith for disbelief has strayed from the right path. Many of the people of the book wish to turn you back into unbelievers after you have believed, out of envy on their part, after the truth has become clear to them. But pardon and overlook until Allah brings his command. Allah has power over all things. The Jews say, the Christians are not based on anything. And the Christians say, the Jews are not based on anything. Yet they both read the scripture. Similarly, the ignorant say the same thing. Allah will judge between them on the day of resurrection regarding their differences. To Allah belongs the east and the west. Whichever way you turn, there is Allah's presence. Allah is omnipresent and omniscient. And they say, Allah has begotten a son. But he glorified. Rather, he is everything in the heavens and the earth. All are obedient to him. Originator of the heavens and the earth, whenever he decrees a thing, he says to it, be, and it becomes. We have sent you with the truth, bringing good news and giving warnings. You will not be questioned about the inmates of hell. The Jews and the Christians will not approve of you unless you follow their creed. Say to them, Allah's guidance is the guidance. Should you follow their desires after the knowledge that has come to you, you will have in Allah neither guardian nor helper. O children of Israel, remember my blessings which I bestowed upon you, and that I have favored you over all people. And when his Lord tested Abraham with certain words, and he fulfilled them, he said, I am making you a leader of humanity. He said, and my descendants? My pledge does not include the wrongdoers. And we made the house, that's the Kaaba, a focal point for the people and a sanctuary. Use the shrine of Abraham as a place of prayer. And we commissioned Abraham and Ishmael, sanctify my house for those who circle around it, and those who seclude themselves in it, and those who kneel and prostrate. Who would forsake the religion of Abraham, except he who fools himself? We chose him in this world, and in the hereafter he will be among the righteous. When his Lord said to him, submit, he said, I have submitted to the Lord. And Abraham exhorted his sons and Jacob, O my sons, Allah has chosen this religion for you, so do not die unless you have submitted. And they say, be Jews or Christians, and you will be guided. Say rather, the religion of Abraham, the monotheist, he was not an idolater. Say, we believe in Allah, and in what was revealed to us, and in what was revealed to Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob and the patriarchs, and in what was given to Moses and Jesus, and in what was given to the prophets from their Lord. We make no distinction between any of them. Okay. So that's focus. He mentions the Christians, but there's a lot about Jews in there. The 19th surah, chapter of the Quran, elaborates on Muhammad's understanding of Christianity more specifically. And this may come as startling, but the title of the chapter is Mary. Is a whole chapter in the Quran about Mary. It's Maryam, but that's they're rendered in Mary. The Quran, chapter 19. So this is verses 2 to 63. Obviously, I'm not going to read all of them, but this will be excerpts. So beginning Quran, chapter 19. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Mention of mercy of your Lord toward his servant Zechariah, when he called on his Lord, a call in seclusion. Zechariah said, My Lord, my bones have become feeble, my head is aflame with gray, and never, Lord, have I been disappointed in my prayer to you. And I fear for my relatives after me, and my wife is barren. So grant me from your presence an heir, who will inherit me and inherit from the house of Jacob, and make him, my Lord, pleasing. O Zechariah, we give you good news of a boy, whose name is John, and we have not given